Good afternoon. Today is Thursday, April 27th, 2023. It is 2 p.m. in council chambers at Sandpoint City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street, Sandpoint, Idaho. And this regular monthly meeting of the Selkirk Fire Service Joint Powers Board is now called to order. For the record, I am Jennifer Stapleton, Board Executive Director presiding. Also present are the members of the board: Sandpoint City Councilor Kate McAllister, representative for the City of Sandpoint; Jim Woodward, representing the Sago Fire District; and Will Gadsby is not here at the moment, representing Westside Fire District, but may join us before the end of the meeting. With that, Pledge of Allegiance. Chief, do you want to recite the pledge and lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, whoa, I just tossed it.
I was like, wham.
Well, with the weather change, I'm not used to wearing it.
Yeah, I'm learning the new life with this set of glasses and sunglasses, and it's not a pleasant experience.
I held off as long as I could.
I have to get
I
my
had cataracts.
new contacts. They're going to try something in each eye, so I'm
I
going to be
couldn't go with
glassless.
that.
Madam Clerk, do we have any members of the public participating remotely on Zoom today?
No, we don't.
Okay. Any members of the public who would like to address the board with any general comments?
Coming from Dover on the city council, I'm open to any suggestions on what I can bring to the city council in support of Westside. I've gone over to the fire station, seen the improvements, welcome improvements on the inside, and looking for anything that we can help out with in terms of making that place, improved or maintained and taken care of. And this is our budget time. I'm sure most agencies going through their budget and things right now. And I'd like to have facts that I can share with the council as what we can do in terms of support for the fire service, emergency services in general, but Westside is in our community. So that's kind of the focus. So anything that I can push that way, I'm happy to do it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Chief, I know you recently met with Dover Mayor, and I don't know if you've included that under your chief's report. I don't want to.
No, I mean, we just had a quick discussion over there about the station and the crews and moving over there, but I do have some of that in there, but.
Okay, there was a concern or a rumor or misunderstanding that Westside was not using the Dover station, and it sounds like that's been clarified, correct?
Correct.
Great. All right, any general announcements from board members or from staff?
So I do want to just to let everyone know that Sago Fire is starting to take a look at the idea of development impact fees. So we talked with the county today. North Side has done that and Spirit Lake has done that. And so we're just learning the process, but somebody's already beaten that path down in front of us.
Right.
And so, but wanted to make sure, so I'll talk to Will that if West Side is interested in pursuing that at the same time, we can potentially run that together and for some savings, because it sounds like the typical way it's been done is a consultant to get through the process of the meeting the Idaho code requirements.
Yeah, we're Sandpoint, we have development impact fees that we've adopted, and actually we're at the point of needing to bring on a consultant. We've been waiting for our utility rates, getting through that rate study, but we're going to be taking on our impact fee studies. So here, hopefully before the end of the year is what the plan is, because we're kind of coming to the end of our timeline with ours as well. So we're using impact fees for equipment, fire apparatus, and other equipment and fire, correct, Sarah? Yeah. So, yeah. Development needs to pay its share of new development costs, so.
Can I add something on that? Talked about safety equipment and stuff like that. That triggered something in my head because I'm also on the DURA board. and there's a line item for safety equipment in terms of emergency services. And so far it hasn't been addressed. And so in turn, once you say safety equipment, then you got to say what kind of safety equipment, okay, before you can ever get to the point where you can actually purchase anything. And that's kind of the things that I would hope to come out of these meetings is that, hey, West Side, in terms of safety equipment, could really use this, could really use that, and find a way to fund some of that stuff.
Well, we're getting into budget time for both the districts. We're there with the city, and I would anticipate our next month's meeting, we're probably going to spend a lot of time talking about budgetary needs, so.
Sarah and I actually are meeting tomorrow to go over that. So it's just to kind of get prepped up for our next JPA meeting, because that will have the JPA budget built into that one, the presentation for that. So.
Yeah, we're at that time of year. You have to love that in Idaho, you're doing budget in the middle of summertime. All right, any other updates? Okay, we'll proceed with approval of the meeting minutes from the March 23rd meeting. And I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And there cannot be anybody opposed. So motion passed and the minutes are approved. Next item on our agenda is the chief's report. So I will yield the floor to you, chief.
So again, just like to start off the chief's report with the career anniversaries that we missed Jake Hilton the previous month, but he did go over 26 years of service. So we just want to acknowledge him and thank him for his dedication. The deputy fire chief update, Chief Armstrong has accepted the offer for the deputy chief position. He'll begin that first week of June. We had a promotion last month. We had Solon Wolf promoting due to the departure of Captain Gal. Then after that, we had Captain Littlefield has departed. And so we will be promote Engineer Bernie Frechette on April the 20th to Captain. So we'll be congratulating him. And again, we'll be doing their penning ceremony probably about the same time. Introduce some of our new firefighters, do our pennings, and then introduce the deputy chief probably around that June meeting. So we'll be kind of looking for that right around that point. The Sandpoint Station crews, again, they'll be moving to Dover. I talked with Cheryl about the final the pre-construction meeting on the 10th of May. So we've scheduled to move out of this station over that following weekend at 13/14, and we'll be fully operational out of that Dover station on the morning of the 15th. So from there, everything that we've talked about up to now is about that 2-month time frame. So we'll be looking at about 2 months running out of the Dover station before we're headed back over here. The incident review for March. Sago had total calls was 177. Sago had 62. Sandpoint had 88, and Westside had 27. There were two calls I think that had a little bit of significance to them. One of them, there was a pretty bad accident on 95. It was a 3-car issue over there. They were on scene over there for about 2.5 hours on that one. And then it wasn't in March, but just yesterday we went to a brush fire that was just past Renco Loop in West Side. It came in as a power pole on fire. Wasn't that power pole was not what was on fire, or some area around it, but then back behind the tree line where the high service line, I guess you call them, there was between two of the spans, it had caught fire right there, and somebody said they heard an explosion, but there's no transformers back there. We got in touch with, I am sorry, I'm going to butcher the name of that company. It starts with a B.
Bonneville Power Administration.
Bonneville Power Administration. They came out along with Northern Lights, and I think even an Avista truck rolled out there just for the safety's sake, just to look at it. IDL and also Selkirk responded. There was no cause that could be determined. They started investigating the rest of that power line system. As of today, they were still thinking it could have been sabotage, like somebody was back there starting fires, doing stuff like that.
couldn't tell you, there was no rhyme or reason. There's no way that there should have been any fire on the ground. So
Well, this time of year, in Dover Bay one time, I was working and an osprey dropped a stick across the lines.
yeah,
It was, so the stick, well, short circuits, drops to the ground. The power lines jumped from the marina clear to the highway.
there you go.
They were, so
It could, I mean, yeah, that's what they were thinking about. So that's all they told us, but they said they did have with the blip, like 25 or so minutes before that came through, they saw the blip on their screen. So
Yeah.
they were, it was like, it was a mystery. So we helped them out. We left a tender out there to help out IDL and keep trucks full of water while they were putting that stuff out. But it was, that's some pretty big electricity that runs through there. I'm pretty good at it in my house, but when it gets to the breaker panel, that's where I stop. I don't go any further than that. So anything beyond the breaker panel is going to be somebody else. Training coming up. We have swiftwater rescue training with Bonner County EMS. Again, that's the end of next month, 31st, and I think June the 1st. Crews also attended mental health resiliency training this past Tuesday. It was a multi-agency multi-discipline training. It was hosted by us as well as Sandpoint PD. We actually had it in the PD's new training room. Crews continue to train our new recruits over the next few weeks on the fundamental firefighting skills. And we're working with, right now, we're actually working with Northside and Schweitzer Fire on multi-agency recruit academy. The academy will be held every 2 years in the spring, and that's just an effort to give structure and stability to the volunteer and resident programs that are here in our county. Instead of each individual agency doing one-offs, it kind of puts everybody in one spot and ensures that everybody's getting trained on the same skills the same way. Whereas right now we're not, and we're trying to hedge our responses with our other agencies, not just our three, but also not just with Northside, but with West Pond Array and Schweitzer. If everybody's trained the same way, it just makes operations on the fire ground that much easier. We know what to expect. We don't get the, hey, we came here, but we didn't bring our gear, things like that. Everybody's on the same page. Our conversations have also garnered the interest of Northern Idaho College. They're interested in putting their instructors into play, as well as some of their equipment, to be able to put these academies on through. It's a launch program that goes through their continuing in their work. I don't know what they call it. It's not the worker continuing education.
career
side.
technical education.
There you go. I'm gonna get them all here in a minute.
Thank you, Jim.
Yes, I know there was a name for it, but we're in the early stages of that. We got together, myself, Chief Mitten, and Chief Newton at Schweitzer, came up with a list of questions. Because at this point, it sounds good in theory, but it needs to be the devil's in the details on the paper. So we need to find out what exactly is going to be offered through NIC. We're committed to doing it with or without them, but if they were to do this, we could get there through that launch program. We could get the instructors and the equipment for basically no cost to us. So we wouldn't have, the departments wouldn't have to give up our instructors to teach this thing out every year, or every 2 years. It also kind of lent the fact in that working to put this on in the opposite years, working with Bonner County EMS to do an EMT basic class on the opposite year, so that every spring there would be something going on, and that would just help everybody be trained at the same level. So more to come on that as we get it figured out, but that's pretty much it on that. Our personnel, right now we have one department-wide, we have one out on FMLA. Firefighter Weeks, who we brought on board last month, completed his recruit academy. He's now assigned to Green Shift and currently out at the Sagal Station. We have 2 new firefighter recruits that started their academy this week. We anticipate them, they should be on shift before we meet again as a JPA board next month. That is firefighter Daniel Jensen and Kaylin Hess, and they started Monday, and they're going through their recruit academy right now. The only community engagement one that we have training coming up is the mock DUI at the high school, and that's going to be on May 23rd. So, and that's it for the chief's report.
So question, Chief, on the monthly comparative analysis,
Mhm.
looks like we're seeing a significant jump in response calls for February and March.
Mhm.
So can you give us kind of a summary of where and what type of calls?
Yeah, so in that February timeframe is when we made the switch to put the iOS stuff back into play. And even though we did that, the majority of our calls it wasn't medical that caused it to go up. We did have just a jump in calls, period. I believe it's the same thing that's happened in the month of March. I'll pull that and I'll have it for us for the next one, but just going off of February's numbers, EMS was not what was driving those up. We just ended up having a lot, more calls per service. So I think that's going to be the same throughout the case.
I think one thing that would be helpful for us moving forward is you have those all classified under EMS calls. I think it would be helpful to have a breakdown on BLS and ILS, because there have been conversations in the past regarding who's responding to what do we want to respond to as opposed to EMS. So actually understanding what type of calls. And then I think too, ultimately, in terms of allocation of costs, I think those types of calls are considered in that allocation of costs. So I think it would be helpful to have that breakdown.
For our JPA deal, we don't include those EMS calls in that. We pull those out.
But again, still understanding that difference on the ILS. and
No, I can
BLS.
definitely do the difference between the two of those. But as far as our cost breakdown, for the shared costs of that formula, we don't use those EMS calls in that formula. We did change it last year so that we could replicate we can't replicate what the doctors in the study when they came in and did their deal, because they were using the CAD data rather than INFRS data. But even when we changed it over where we're using INFRS data, we still pulled that the EMS stuff out of it, because we talked about it last year a little bit. We just decided to keep the EMS out of it. So, but yeah, I'll break it down for you.
Yeah, and then moving forward, whether that's all EMS or whether it's excluding one or the other, I think just having those numbers is helpful.
Sure, no problem.
Any other questions for the chief?
What's an example of a good intent call?
If we went there and maybe it was a wrong location, or we got there and they thought that it was, it's not like a false call. Maybe somebody saw, it came out as a fire and you got there and somebody was actually just burning leaves in their backyard. Like we showed up, but it wasn't an emergency like they thought it was. And that's kind of when it goes into the CAD like that, when dispatch gets it, their data is what they dispatch us to. When we report our stuff into the state and the national level, it's what we find when we get there. So those may not be the same. And if we find something different than what they dispatch, they don't go back and change what they did. They leave it the same. So that's why it's important that we're using that data that we report, so we know what it is.
So on that note, do you think because of all the new people moving here, they're not aware of like burning, like pile burning and stuff? Do you think you might have a lot more of those? Or I don't know how we can get information out to them saying, hey, if you see fire,
Yeah.
first check and see if it's your neighbor burning. Because I think
Yeah.
there's so many new people, they may not know that that's how things are done here.
That is,
Even
that
in
is
city limits.
that's a thing. So, when I think at one time they tried to do, some get out into the media and let them know, hey, it's what everybody kind of determines is sport burning. Get it done before you have to get the permits from IDL or what have you. I think there's so much transient traffic. There's so many people that are, coming in from the outside. They just don't get it. And we still go to them.
Yeah.
We don't front load a lot of resources on that stuff. If it's report of smoke or something like that, smoke checks is what we call them. So we'll send a unit and we'll go check, but it's not something that they run code to. They just drive over there and handle that. But some people, I think probably the last couple of months, maybe last couple of months, we've had an uptick in the, oh my gosh, I can see the house is on fire from,
Right.
across the highway, and it's not, it's a slash pile, and you get there and that's
Mm.
kind of, we go like, because that's what we get toned out as, but as soon as the first unit gets there, they cancel everybody else out.
Well, we get calls at the chamber about that. It's like, my neighbor is burning stuff, or what's going on? It's like,
Right.
well, it's pile burning, and usually they control it,
Mhm.
so.
They're
Yeah.
supposed, there's rules that govern that stuff. They're supposed to be with it. They're supposed to monitor it. When we get there and they're not, if we find out or we notify IDL, then I guess that's when the ticket books come out, because you're not doing it the right way. Even though you don't have to have a permit, you still have to abide by the rules and how you burn it, so.
Yeah.
And that's, May 20th, I think, May 20th is when they start theirs. And I'm talking with, the fire warden that's up here, Brian Hicks. They're looking at actually trying to get theirs pushed back, because it's from May to October. They think they want to try to get it pushed back into April now. So anything like April tax season, April 15th timeframe, moving forward to October, they're trying to push it back a month, because it's just getting a little bit drier sooner. People are out there trying to burn, so. Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
we'll see, yeah.
So back to the question that Jim had
Mhm.
on, can you tell us the difference between, give us an example of like a good intent versus a false call?
I would say good intent is those things that, we went there to do some, we may have gotten canceled en route. That happens a lot of times on medical calls. If we go en route to somebody for, respiratory or something like that, medical gets there, that being Bonner County EMS gets there ahead of us, they may cancel us out because there might not be anything to it. That's a good intent. Our intent was to get a false call. Alarm activations turn out to be nothing, things like that. So it's just, yeah, they're false. So. If that helps.
Yep,
Yeah.
it does. Any other questions or comments on the chief's report? No? Great. Sarah, you are up with the monthly financial report.
All right, in front of you is the year-to-date fiscal year 23 through March, so 6 months of the year is on this report. Pay periods due is 12.5 out of the 26 pay periods, so 48% of the pay periods are accumulated on here. You can see the budget year-to-date spent in the different areas. If you have any specific questions, Gavin can hopefully answer them or go research them and figure them out.
Chief,
Um,
maybe, and Sarah, could you, and really, I think it's really the chief. So could you talk a little bit about the trends you're seeing in overtime? When I'm looking at the different stations, Sandpoint, we hit a real high in November. And then now we're seeing overtime trend back down and kind of hold for a couple months. But then when I look at Sagal, we saw them hit that high about the same time, then trend way down and then kind of middle ground. And now it looks like maybe they're trending up. And then we've kind of seen a jump around overall with Kerrywood, but probably more norming with that. And probably so with West Side, but particularly, can you speak to what might be contributing to what we're seeing at the Sandpoint Station and Sagal Station?
Yeah, from what I can tell, when Sandpoint, Sagal, that's where our people have been out. On the FMLA was a huge thing starting in, I would say probably about that September, October timeframe last year. We had a slew of people out either on FMLA or it was workers' comp, things like that. But yeah, as we were getting people back, we didn't really have a lot of the people calling out, but then we had people leaving. Once they leave, then it's an open position until we can get it filled. So it creates an overtime position that way. We get them filled as fast as we can, as fast as we find out if someone is leaving. We go off our list. We've even got just the last two. I went down the list and basically the hiring list and actually interviewed more people than we had openings for. So we weren't having to have a delay in setting those deals up. So, and then just the other day, I've also got, there's possibly one more that's leaving because they're in the process of testing for another agency. So I've already got that interview accomplished. So when they decide if it's their time to go, then we just put them in the slot and get them on board. But other than that, that's really just all it is. We have not had we work down, we shift people around to try to save the overtime to where it's more of a flat rate rather than paying overtime. But, we had so many people out for so long. It was kind of like, talking the last time, it's like, your grade point average, you start out, it's a 4.0, but if you end up low in that first semester, it takes like forever to get out of the hole. Our issue now is, they were talking, we had talked about some stuff the other day with the training. They want to get this training thing back going and then want to pay overtime for it. I'm like, where are you getting that money from? Sandpoint's got, $30,000 budget and we're already expended 28,000 of it. And Sagal is if you combine Sagal and Carywood, it's with 46,000 and they're at 44,000 expended already. So I know we break them out separately just so we can track them, but the Carywood station is the one that works down to one person. So if somebody's out there, unless somebody's out at Sagal, there's not really an overtime. So it's just kind of weird. And then the west side one, the west side was a little bit, here and there. That was the one that anytime anybody's off at that station, we backfill it now. So but that was where one of the people was out for FMLA for 3 months, something like that, and then hit us with the retirement thing right as with no notice. So we didn't even have anybody in the slot for that one. It took us almost a month to get somebody on board for his spot. So yeah, overtime's a tricky one. I don't like the way that it's done, but we've kind of been down that road before a little bit, but hopefully we can get it corrected when we move forward into it next year.
So at this point, we still have one out on FMLA, probably returning in the next 3-4 weeks.
I hope.
And then you've got new recruits on, so
Right.
Your anticipation now is we should start to see this.
Hopefully,
flatten
yeah,
out
hopefully
to a
this
norm.
kind of takes care of itself. The one of the 3 new recruits, one of them's already on shift. So that actually takes up one of the slots that was empty. These 2, they started this week, that they go on shift in about 3 weeks from the day they start. They'll have a couple classes they'll have to do, but they can do those while they're on shift. But the initial 3 weeks to get them put on shift is we're about 2.5 weeks away from that. So, yeah.
Okay.
One of those was a double. I know one of the shifts, I think on red shift, it was a double up when Gal left because he was on red, and then the other one, the one that's on FMLA, he's on red shift as well. So red shift's getting a double whammy right now. They're having to fill it with overtime anytime somebody's out. So.
Okay. Sarah, didn't mean to get us off too far off track.
And then moving on to the JPA administration on the next page. The yellow highlighted as 40% of the budget is spent, again, with 6 months being gone. So the only thing I would have to know this time would be in March, there was a big purchase of looks like turnouts that were purchased this time, the 26,000. So that was the one-time big expenditure. Otherwise, other than that, they're just the normal, the insurance I crimped, there's a double, that's twice a year. So that was the second installment that was paid for that, came out also as well in March. Otherwise, just operations as normal, it looks like to me, unless there's anything else to note for you, Gavin.
I don't think so. The turnout deal hitting in March, it should probably hit about the same time again next year. When we get into the next budget, it'll hit in March. We try to order, it's about anywhere from 7 to 9 months to get those in. So as we order them, we try to order them ahead of October in the fiscal year, because like fire trucks and everything else is they know when our fiscal year is, so that's when they jack it up 5%. So we try to beat that and at least get them ordered, because we don't pay for them until they arrive. So that's probably that's the way we did it last year, probably the same way this next coming year too.
Any questions or comments on financial reports?
Did this overtime, but that's fine.
Yeah, if we can get the overtime under control, we actually overall, I think, look good.
Yeah.
All right. With no further business before the board today, this meeting is now adjourned at 2:31 PM. And it sounds like we'll have more your way maybe next month.
Well, good.